Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man's Core Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Midnight Tales video for you guys, and this was titled Four Most Disturbing True Camp Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights back off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
A couple years back, my best friend and I were talking about how we hadn't gone camping in a while, and we figured it was time to get back out there. We usually try to make it out to the woods a few times a month. We're into the more primitive kind of camping. No amenities, no comfort, just you, your gear, and whatever the weather decides to throw your way. It was late November in Virginia, so we were looking at that coin flip, where it's either unexpectedly nice or brutally cold. And of course, it turned out to be the latter.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind camping in the woods, but I'd rather do it like in the fall or springtime, because summertime would be way too hot and the bugs would be aggravating the snot out of you. And if you do it in the winter, oh my God, the snow will be packed. And you probably freeze out there without no campfire going. But let's just see what happens that makes this night disturbing for them.
Despite the cold, our girlfriends had been bugging us to finally take them with us on one of these trips, even though we'd always warned them how miserable our idea of fun can be. But they insisted, and we were honestly kind of hyped they wanted to come. We figured, what the hell? Maybe they'll enjoy the challenge. So Saturday comes around. We're all packed up and driving about 2.5 hours west into the mountains to this spot we call our secret site. It's not officially on any map, more like one of those scenic roadside overlooks that people pull into to admire the view. But it has a trail, and I say that word lightly, leading down to a rocky drop-off where we usually set up camp. As we got closer, the rain started, and the temperature kept dropping. I could tell my girlfriend was already uneasy, especially since it was getting dark fast. But we kept assuring her that we'd done this plenty of times and everything would be fine.
You think everything will be fine. When you go out camping and it's raining, there might be the risk of you catching the flu out there. But they also might be afraid that someone or something might be lurking around. But I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead, so let's continue on and see what happens next.
By the time we arrived, it was already dark. The only view was of the city lights twinkling in the distance, and the wind had picked up enough to make it feel like it was cutting straight through our clothes. I'd say it was hovering just above freezing, about 34 degrees or so, and that rain had turned to a mist that just clung to everything. The girls had definitely lost that spark of excitement they had earlier. Our secret spot required some effort to reach. There's a steep, sketchy rock scramble that drops probably 75 feet from the overlook to this flat area below. It's not a marked trail, more like something high schoolers use to sneak off and smoke without getting caught. And yet, we weren't technically supposed to camp there, but being young and dumb, that never stopped us before. So I get my gear out, and my girlfriend and I head to the edge of the trail to start making our way down, while my friend and his girlfriend are still gathering their stuff. We wait for a bit, and after a few minutes, we're wondering what's taking them so long. It's cold, wet, and we're both getting annoyed. Eventually, I hike back to the car to check on them, and that's when I hear them arguing. Turns out, my buddy had locked the damn keys in the car. Great. 10 at night, raining, freezing, and now we're stranded in the middle of nowhere with no cell signal and no easy way out. I head back over to my girlfriend and tell her what's up. She's got a joint condition that acts up in cold, damp weather, and I can tell she's starting to hurt. So I yell to my buddy that we're going to start heading down to get a fire going so she can warm up, and I'll come back up afterward. We switch on our headlamps and begin carefully working our way down the slippery slope. It's brutal. The mist makes it almost impossible to see. It reflects off the light and blinds you instead of helping. We have to work in this weird leapfrog system, She hands me her gear, climbs down to me, takes mine. I go further down, rinse and repeat. It's exhausting and painfully slow, but we're getting there. We're about 10 minutes from the bottom, where we usually pitch our tent, when she suddenly stops and says, "What's that?" There's tension in her voice that makes me instantly alert. I look where she's pointing, and through the fog, I can barely make out what looks like a tarp. My first thought? Score! Free tarp! I figured it must have blown off someone's sight and just landed there. Maybe they never came back to get it. But as I get closer, I spot something weird. A plastic handheld shopping basket, the kind you get at grocery stores. It looked like it had a bunch of snack wrappers in it. My girlfriend's eyes are wide, and she whispers, "Is that a person under the tarp?" I tried to laugh it off and told her there's no way.
Uh, yes, way. You'd be too lucky if it was a free tarp. It's probably somebody's campsite and they're a homeless person. Best thing to do is back away slowly and not make any noise before that guy wakes up. You definitely don't want him coming out and charging at you and be like, "What are you doing out here?" He'd probably attack you with a stick or rock or something, you don't know.
I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, in freezing rain, halfway down a rocky cliff. There's no trail access, no fire, no gear, no sign of anyone else being out here. This is not a place where someone just camps casually. Definitely not a homeless person, and no way a through hiker. We're nowhere near a through trail, store, or road. I creep closer, mostly to prove to her it's nothing and we're just spooking ourselves. My light shines directly on the tarp. It shifts. I freeze. Maybe it's the wind. I glance back at her. She's already backing up slowly. I turn back toward the tarp and it shifts again. Bigger this time. There's a person under there. They're waking up. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the rain. I whisper, "Run!" But she's already scrambling up the rocks. I yell again just to be sure she's moving, then turn and bolt after her. As I pause for a moment halfway up, I turn off my light and listen. I can hear the shifting of stones. This person is now walking around, fully awake. No fire, no light, just moving in the dark. Still trying to keep a rational mind, I call out, asking if they're okay or if they need help. Nothing. Not a single word back. I ask again. Silence. That was it for me. We scrambled back up to the top, where my friend and his girlfriend are still huddled near the car, freaked out about the keys. We tell them everything, and now they're panicking too. It's raining harder now, and we end up setting up a makeshift tarp shelter and just sitting under it, shivering and waiting while my buddy hikes around trying to get signal. I couldn't stop staring at the trailhead, half expecting this silent stranger to come crawling up after us. Eventually, thank God, he gets enough signal to call a locksmith, and when the guy shows up and we tell him what happened, he just goes pale and says, "Y'all need to get out of here, now." Apparently, he'd lived in the area his whole life and told us about weird disappearances, unsolved hiker murders, basically, local legends no one likes to talk about. He said some people just vanish out here, and some people hide out here for a reason. We didn't even hesitate. We got in the car and drove all the way home that night. No camping, no sleep, just silence and headlights. To this day, I still think about that night, about that person under the tarp. What were they doing out there? Were they hiding, running, planning something? It still messes with my head. There was no way they could have survived out there in those conditions without gear, and we never heard a single word from them, just silence in the dark. It was the first time I truly understood that, in the wild, people can be the scariest thing out there. I look back now and realize how reckless I was. I never should have taken my girlfriend to an illegal site, in the cold, with no communication and no real plan. I let my own ego and comfort with the outdoors blind me to how dangerous it could actually get. That night could have ended a lot worse. It changed how I approach every trip now. We never went back.
Thank God the locksmith came and got their door open so they could get out of there. But that'd be scary to hear from him that there was weird murders and disappearances happening in that area. But it was kind of stupid for trying to even ask if that guy was okay and need anything. He could have probably figured out where you were and jumped and grabbed you and murdered you right there. But thankfully, they got out of there all right, and they learned now not to let their ego on a camping trip take hold, and hopefully they don't have to deal with that, but they're prepared now.
This happened a few years back, when I was 13. At that time, I was in this tight-knit group with 4 of my best friends, Noah, Zach, Rose, and Lynn. We were that crew who always had something going on, whether it was beach trips, random road trips, or pitching tents in some remote spot just for the thrill of it. Noah's family had money, and our parents were all pretty chill, so they never really gave us a hard time about going off on our little adventures. It was the summer right before 8th grade, and we decided to do a proper camping trip before school started back up. Now, this wasn't just the 5 of us. Lynn's older sister Margot came along, and Zach's older brother Todd tagged in too, both 17. So we were a group of 7. Me, Zach, and Lynn were 13. Rose and Noah were 14, and the 2 older siblings were kind of the responsible ones, in theory. We found this spot out in the woods about 20 minutes from Noah's place. Super remote, barely any trails, and absolutely no phone service. The kind of place you pick when you want to feel like you're really off the grid.
Sounds like a good, ideal place to go to camp. But if you don't have no cell service, then what are you going to do if you get attacked by a wild animal or some crazy person out there? You can't call nobody. You have to start running till you get to a nearest part of town that has cell service, or get back to your house quick.
Everything went pretty smoothly at first. We set up 2 tents, girls in one, boys in the other, and spent the afternoon swimming in this nearby pond, cooking over a fire, and doing all the cheesy camp stuff like roasting marshmallows and telling half-baked ghost stories. Eventually, Margot and Lynn decided to crash early, and the rest of us stuck around the fire, messing around and telling stupid jokes. A little while later, Margot comes stomping back from the tent looking annoyed. She said someone was running their hand or something along the side of their tent. None of us had moved from the fire, and the tents weren't that close, so it wasn't any of us. Todd was like, "Relax, probably just a tree branch." And Margot rolled her eyes and went back. Rose and I figured we might as well get some sleep too, so we left the boys and crawled into the tent. Lynn was already passed out, and the rest of us settled in, me closest to the front, Rose beside me, and Margot next to Lynn at the far end. I fell asleep pretty quick, but a few hours later, around 2:15, I remember checking my phone. I shot awake for no obvious reason. I was just lying there, eyes adjusting to the pitch black, wondering what the heck woke me up. Then I heard it, this slow tapping on the outside of the tent, followed by a weird giggle. It didn't sound like any of the guys. It was a deeper voice, but not like full-grown man deep. The sound stopped after a bit, and I just convinced myself I was overthinking it. Maybe I was half dreaming or something. Either way, I managed to fall back asleep. Next morning, we decided to go hiking. To keep our stuff safe, we split up. Margot, Lynn, Rose, and I went off on the trail, and the guys stayed behind to fish and watch the camp. We were gone for about 2 hours, and when we got back, the boys were nowhere in sight. Margot grumbled and took Lynn down to the lake to hunt them down, while Rose and I went to check on the tents. And that's when everything went from chill to straight up nightmare. Our tents were torn to shreds, like not just ripped, but slashed with something sharp. I got up close and saw the cuts, small, precise slices, definitely done with a pocket knife or something like it. Our tents were made from heavy-duty fabric too, so whatever did this took effort. Rose was freaked out, and honestly, I wasn't feeling much better. We yelled for the others and they came running. Things got worse when Todd checked his car and realized someone slashed his tires too, and we had no signal, no way to call for help. The only decent news? Margot's car was fine. She had just enough space to take Lynn and Noah back into town to get help. She promised to call 911 and come back for the rest of us. While we waited, Todd, Zach, Rose, and I started walking down the long dirt path toward the main road to save time. None of us wanted to be anywhere near that site.
But if them boys were near the tents, that guy wouldn't come back and sliced the tents up, and I bet you he probably sliced the car tires first and then went back in the woods when they went to go fish to slice the tents up. But this guy might be a psychotic murderer. Oh man, I hope that lady comes back with reinforcements just so they can scan the area and find that guy and get them other boys and girl out of there to safety. But this is why you pick a spot that has cell service, because if you don't, this stuff would happen.
We figured we'd meet Margot halfway or something. Rose and Zach both had phones still working, so they were tracking how far we walked. After about 30 minutes, I started hearing twigs snap off to the side, deeper in the woods. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was animals, or maybe my imagination playing games. But then I told Todd, and I could see him start glancing around more often. That tension in the air just kept building. And then, boom, Todd yells, "Run!" I turned to look and froze. 3 massive dudes in dark hoodies were coming at us from the woods. 2 had knives. They looked huge, like all over 6 feet tall, easily over 200 pounds, and they were wearing masks, like actual ski masks. It felt surreal, like we were suddenly in a horror movie, but this was real, in broad daylight. We all took off running. I don't know how long we sprinted, but it felt like forever. Eventually, either they gave up or got bored because we didn't see them anymore. We made it to the main road, still on edge, glancing over our shoulders every few seconds. Eventually, Margot pulled up, and I've never been so relieved to see a beat-up Subaru in my life. The police were called, and they searched the area, but they didn't find a thing. No footprints, no torn tents, nothing. Just our photos from earlier and some gear, like we were never there. To this day, I have no idea what those guys wanted. Maybe it was just to scare us. Maybe it was worse. I think about it all the time, like what if we'd stayed behind? What if we hadn't started walking early? We weren't exactly a tough group, just a bunch of lanky teens who got lucky. I still go camping, but never without service, never without an adult, and never, ever at that spot again.
Well, maybe you probably stumbled in a part of the woods that a gang might hang out in and they didn't want you there. So that's why they ripped up your tents, slashed the tires on that guy's car, and started coming out of the woods to chase you. But there might have been people planning on robbing him, too. You just don't know. But thank God that girl came back on her car and they got picked up and got out of there. But dang, I wish them guys got caught. But they must have been smart enough to cover their tracks literally, so the police would not find anything that they were there. That is creepy. I wouldn't blame them for not going back camping there. I wouldn't either.
Back in the summer of 2016, my wife and I were riding high on post-wedding bliss. We'd been together for over a decade, and throughout those years, one of our favorite things to do was pack up the dogs and head to the mountains. Sometimes it was just rustic camping under the stars, and other times we splurged on cozy lodges with fireplaces and ski slopes just outside. So naturally, when it came time to plan a honeymoon, there was no question. We booked ourselves a 20-day mountain camping trip across the country, loaded up the car, tossed in the pups, and hit the road for what we thought would be the most peaceful trip of our lives. And at first, it really was. The air was fresh, the trees towered above us, and after 2 days of solid driving, we arrived and set up camp like seasoned pros.
I mean, hey, You tell me you're planning a trip to go to the mountains and camp, I'll go too. Wouldn't mind enjoying the nature at its finest. But you know, when the mountains, the leaves change colors on the trees, that's always a good thing to see too.
By day 3, we were already that couple at the campground, the ones with the perfectly set up site that newbies kept wandering over to for advice or spare supplies. We didn't mind. We've always been happy to lend a hand, whether someone needed a fire starter or forgot their sugar. But then things took a turn. It was around the 4th or 5th day when she showed up. I say she because to this day, we never did get her name. My wife and I were sitting beneath a tall pine, playing cards and enjoying a couple cold beers when, bam, there she was. No footsteps, no warning, just there. Can I pet your dog? She asked out of nowhere. Even the dogs hadn't sensed her approaching, and they immediately freaked out, barking and growling like she'd dropped out of the sky. I politely told her it wasn't a good idea, and instead of leaving, she just stood there, didn't talk, didn't smile, didn't even look directly at us, just loitered on the edge of our sight like she forgot what she came for. After a few awkward minutes, she turned and walked off. Now, I've worked with folks who've had serious brain injuries, so I try not to jump to conclusions when someone acts a little off. But still, this lady had my attention. I watched as she walked into a nearby campsite a few plots down from ours, where a small tent was already pitched. She pulled out another, smaller tent from her backpack and started setting it up. I recognized that campsite. 2 girls had set up there the day before, but today they were nowhere in sight. The next morning, I was headed to the showers when I saw her again. She was sitting in her tent with the flap open, reading a book. Didn't think much of it. But on my way back, the tent flap was closed, but rustling like someone was definitely inside. And just as I was passing, she unzipped it, and boom, there she was, completely naked, not even trying to be subtle. She stretched like she was doing a yoga pose meant to seduce wildlife, arms up, chest out, and even let out this exaggerated moan that made me think I was suddenly in a very weird European art film. I awkwardly walked past and told my wife about it when I got back. We laughed it off, kind of unsure what to make of it. Later that day, we hiked to this awesome waterfall nearby. It was a bit of a trek, but worth every step. As we were taking in the view and snapping pictures, guess who appears out of the trees behind us? Yep, her. At first, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence. Popular trail, lots of campers. But the way she just froze and stared when she saw us? Nope, that was not normal. I turned to my wife and said, I think we've got a stalker. She turned to look and instantly got that same uneasy vibe. So we kept hiking, trying to ignore it, but she was always right there behind us, never catching up, never falling behind. Our youngest dog wouldn't stop looking back at her, clearly uneasy. Eventually, I suggested we stop for water and let her pass. She didn't. She stopped too, just stood there again. That was it. We both agreed to cut the hike short and take the quick loop back. Every time we turned a corner, we jogged a bit to put some distance between us. Eventually, we lost her. That night, my wife went to take a shower and came back with more weirdness. Apparently, the woman was in the bathroom with the 2 girls from the campsite, the ones who originally set up where she pitched her tent. My wife noticed pretty quickly that the girls didn't really know her. She was clearly trying to tag along with them on a night out to the nearby ski town, and they were just entertaining her, probably to get rid of her. They told her to meet them at a restaurant that had already closed. Basically, they were ditching her. As soon as she left, the girls were in the bathroom laughing about it, making fun of her like mean kids at a school lunch table. My wife, being the kind of person who doesn't put up with that nonsense, even toward a creep, called them out. That's when the girls admitted that she'd basically just moved into their sight while they were gone, and they didn't know how to kick her out without causing drama. That night, around 3 a.m., We were jolted awake by a scream. Not just any scream, this high pitched, bone chilling shriek that sounded like someone being attacked. The dogs lost it. My wife was shaking. I peeked out the trailer window, and there she was, standing dead still outside our sight, not moving an inch. Even though I only cracked the window cover a tiny bit, it felt like she was staring right into my soul. After what felt like forever, she just turned and walked off. That whiskey nightcap was definitely earned. The next day, our friends arrived from the city. We were excited to have a normal weekend. But no more than 15 minutes into setting up, there she was again. Bam, right in our campsite. She asked, again, if she could pet the dog. This time, the dog was barking like crazy, and I told her flat out it wasn't a good idea. She just stood there, silent. Then she noticed my friend's tent and mentioned it was the same model as hers, just bigger.
Okay, let's catch up a little bit here. The guy walks out of the shower house and sees this woman stretch out of her tent naked. That's kind of weird because imagine there was kids walking around, so cover their eyes automatically if that happened and yell at them for coming out of their tent naked. But yeah, that would be weird to see unless that person was like a nudist. But anyway, seeing that person again while you're hiking is very strange. This is one of those stalkers that just won't take the hint and leave. They just want to keep on following you to make you paranoid. But then you hear noises outside your campsite of people screaming. I guarantee it was probably them girls getting attacked by this woman because she didn't like being told to go to this restaurant and it was closed. Let's just see what happens later. But if the dogs don't like her, then she's already got bad negativity around her.
He wasn't having any of it and gave her a dry, cool. Then she tried to help set it up, grabbing his hammer and pegs like she was invited. He asked for them back. She stared like a full-on slasher villain, then suddenly dropped everything and sprinted off into the woods. That's when I filled in our friends on the week's events. They were just as creeped out as we were. Later that night, she came back one more time, this time with a new pitch. "You've got lots of room in that camper," she said. "Maybe I could stay with you guys tonight. We'd have some fun." My friend, tipsy from a full day of beers, didn't skip a beat. "Did you just propose a gangbang?" I was sitting there, glass of whiskey in hand, just stunned. She looked straight at me, grinned, and said, "I like your friend." Then she turned and disappeared into the night, like some weird camping-themed ghost. When we went to clean up for bed, my wife pointed out her campsite. It was trashed. Garbage and clothes thrown everywhere, and her tent? Gone. She had vanished, leaving the place looking like a bear had hosted a party. A park ranger was doing rounds nearby, so we told him the whole story. He said he'd look into it. We didn't see her again until the final day. There's this lookout point near our site, perfect for watching the sunset over the valley. We were up there enjoying the view when my wife saw something through the camera lens. Her, standing halfway down the slope, just watching us. She climbed up, sat silently on a rock next to us, and didn't say a word. My wife gave me a sly look and asked me to take a picture of the sunset, making sure the woman would be in frame. Just in case, you know. We got our last look at the mountains, packed up the next day, and left without any more sightings. Looking back, we both agreed something was seriously wrong with her. Socially off was one thing, but the stalking, midnight howls, the staring, and that weird final encounter, that was something else. At times it felt like she was seconds away from snapping, and not just mentally. I've never been more relieved to leave a campsite in my life.
Okay, well, he did not say if them girls that were camped right next to her got killed or anything, so they probably screamed like that lady running them off or something. I don't know. But then this woman had the nerve to show up and try to help his friends set up their tent. and sprint off when she got the vibe that they didn't want her there is weird. But luckily, once they got out of there, that woman did not follow them home, or they did not see her again anywhere else. But that will be a scary trip to remember for sure.
So a while back, maybe 3 or 4 summers ago, my buddies and I decided to do our annual guys camping trip. It's something we've done since high school. Just me, Ryan, Marcus, and Joel, out in the woods somewhere with no cell service, no responsibilities, and way too much beer. That year, we had just wrapped up college and wanted to celebrate with one last, no worries, just vibes weekend before real life hit us. We picked a remote patch of forest in southern Oregon, somewhere off the grid, not an official campground, just nature in its rawest form. The first day, man, it was awesome. We got the tent set up, collected a bunch of firewood, grilled some burgers, and even managed to fish a bit, though none of us caught anything worth bragging about. Once the sun dipped down behind the trees, we lit up a fire, roasted marshmallows like kids, and cracked open a ridiculous amount of beer. It was honestly the perfect kind of day where your only concern is whether your marshmallow is going to catch fire. We all passed out full and buzzed, with the fire dying out as the stars came out. Next day followed the same blueprint: bit of hiking, exploring random trails, telling dumb stories from college, and eating like we hadn't seen food in weeks. But that night, that's where things got different. We were winding down by the fire, and Marcus brought up this creepy camping video he'd seen on YouTube. Some story where these campers kept hearing laughter in the middle of the night, but no one could figure out where it came from. I remember joking. Bet it was just some drunk raccoon with jokes. Yeah, not so funny in hindsight. Later that night, we were messing around, fake wrestling near the fire like a bunch of idiots. At one point, Ryan just stops cold, like mid-laugh, full stop, and stares into the trees behind me. We're all like, "What's up?" And he says, "I swear I just heard something over there." I figured it was probably just some animal. I mean, we're out in the woods. Raccoons, squirrels, deer. It's their home. But Ryan looked genuinely weirded out, which kind of made me nervous too. I tried to lighten the mood by tackling him into the dirt, and everyone just laughed it off again. It kind of faded into the background, until about 10 minutes later. We were wiped by then and decided to kill the fire and hit the tent. We had one of those big family-sized tents, the kind you can actually stand in, so we were all piled in there together. Just as we turned off our lantern, I heard this low, raspy chuckle, like someone trying to hold in a laugh but failing. I assumed it was Joel, because he'd been giggling at literally everything since dinner. I turned my flashlight toward him, expecting to catch him mid-laugh, but instead, he looked freaked out, like pale, wide-eyed, not faking it freaked out. He whispered, "You guys heard that, right?" And I said, "The laughing?" Marcus chimed in, "Wait, that wasn't you?" That's when we all kind of realized something was seriously off. We shuffled around and settled into the tent. I reached under my sleeping bag and grabbed the hatchet we'd used for chopping firewood earlier. Didn't exactly have a lot of weapons out there, but that thing felt like a lifesaver. I was at one end of the tent. Joel and Ryan were in the middle, and Marcus was at the other end. None of us said a word, but you could feel it. None of us were asleep. It didn't help that we were deep in the woods, not at any established site. No rangers, no other campers, just us, and about a mile hike back to the car, with barely any signal unless you climbed a tree and waved your phone around like a lunatic. The realization kind of hit that if someone was out there, we were pretty screwed. At some point, I guess I drifted off, but I shot awake when I heard that same creepy laugh again. Only this time, it sounded closer. Too close. It wasn't a chuckle anymore. It was like this weird, throaty giggle that felt like it was coming from just outside the tent wall. I froze. didn't even turn my head. I just stared straight up at the ceiling of the tent, heart pounding, clutching that hatchet like it was a teddy bear. Then, out of nowhere, a shadow moved across the side of the tent, and what looked like a finger. It started slowly tracing circles on the fabric of the tent, just gliding along, as if whoever was out there knew exactly how freaked out we were. That finger made its way around the side of the tent, and when it got to the entrance, everything went dead quiet, like the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Then, all at once, the whole tent shook violently, and this voice, low but loud, yelled "Waka Waka Waka," like some freak show muppet on drugs. Joel screamed louder than I've ever heard a man scream, and right after, whoever it was outside let out this long, wheezy laugh and walked off like they were just going for a stroll. We didn't sleep after that, not even close. We just laid there, holding our breath every time a twig snapped. It was probably the longest night of my life. By the time the sun came up, we didn't even talk. We just started packing, took down the tent, shoved everything into backpacks, and made the hike back to the car without a single joke or smart remark. We still do camping trips every year, but you better believe we go to actual campgrounds now, with lights, people, and sometimes even a ranger station nearby. And these days, I don't just bring a hatchet. I've got a Judge revolver with me every time, just in case. I'll never really know if it was a psycho playing games or just some local pulling a prank. But either way, I'm not taking chances like that again.
It's kind of weird that you look up videos on YouTube with campers reporting strange laughter, and then all of a sudden you hear laughter at your campsite. It's like too good to be true, ain't it? And also, he said it's probably a raccoon that's drunk. I mean, are you kidding me? A raccoon or any other animal will not laugh like they're describing. But I'm also glad that they got out of there all right, because I know they were not going to stick around to find out who was making that noise. I wouldn't either. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.